Welcome to Live Your Balance, a podcast for busy humans who are curious about taking a step back from overwhelm so that they can create more balance in their lives. I'm your host, Jordan Burrell. I'm a life coach and occupational therapist, and I'm also the founder and creator of Elevate Wellness. It's my mission to help empower women to step away from overwhelm so that they can feel good and create and live their balance each and every day. Hello, my love, and welcome back to Live Your Balance. How are you today? How has your week been? How are things going for you? I must say that this week has been a bit of a tiring one for me, and I think there's a number of contributing factors towards that. First off, we're going into, is it week 5 of lockdown here in the UK? Maybe it's week 5, maybe it's week 6. I've honestly lost count. So I think it's getting to the point where that is starting to have an impact on people. And I'm sure I said this last week, but I think as time goes by, things are starting to feel a little bit tougher, a little bit more Groundhog Day-ish, a little bit samey. And that understandably has an effect on our motivation and our energy levels if we're not able to be going about our lives in the way that we want to. I think also for the last couple of weeks, I have been navigating balancing in my new group collective, the Live Your Balance collective, with all the other stuff that I do. And that's understandably, I think, a bit of a journey of trying to navigate and create balance whilst I've taken on extra work. And there's a part of me that also stays mindful of the fact that in order to move my business forward, in order to keep creating and moving on to the next level in my business, there is an element where I have to push a little bit harder, move a little bit closer, take on a little bit more, and balance that in with all that I'm doing. So it is like walking a bit of a tightrope, and it can feel a little bit wobbly and it can feel a little bit uncomfortable. And there are definitely days where I've not felt as balanced as other days, but I think that's okay. It's all part of the process. Balance is a journey and a destination, and I'm absolutely firm in my conviction that all the steps that I'm taking are getting me closer to creating and living my most balanced life and creating and living my balanced vision, which is what for me is most important. And sometimes we might have to do this balance of short-term versus long-term and take the short-term hit in order to create something that's more balanced and more effective in the long term. Hope that makes sense to you, but I definitely have been reflecting on that this week and really feel like that is coming into play in my work-life balance at the moment as a side hustler, as somebody that has a full-time job and a business, both of which are very much important to me and really integral in my life vision, in bringing the vision of my most balanced life into reality. So if you are struggling, if you are finding it hard to create balance in your life in these unprecedented and uncertain times, it's okay. I just want you to know that it's okay to not feel balanced 100% of the time. It's okay to feel like you don't have it together, or that things feel more difficult, or like you're wading through treacle. Like, all of those things are okay. What matters the most is coming back to our values, coming back to our vision, and thinking, okay, am I aligning right now? Am I aligning with my values? Am I aligning with my vision? Am I taking action that's going to support me in creating and living my balance? Or am I taking action that doesn't align with that doesn't help me get any closer, that is effectively sabotaging me living and creating my most balanced life? That's just a little reflection that I wanted to share with you as we kick off this episode of Live Your Balance. But I think it's about high time that we dropped into How Does She Do It? Welcome to How Does She Do It, the part of the show where we dive into finding out how our wonderful guest creates and lives her most balanced life. Each guest will answer the same 7 questions each and every week so you can get a really great idea about how she does it, how she creates and lives her balance. This week's guest is the wonderful Emily. Now, as usual, I will let her introduce herself, but Emily is somebody that I've got to know quite well over the last few months. Emily was one of my one-on-one clients when I first launched the Balance Babe one-on-one program back in January of this year. And I have to say, it's been such an honor and a privilege to see and be part of Emily's journey to creating and living a more balanced life. So I'm really excited to share with you how she does it today. Question 1. Who are you? What do you do? And how do you spend your time?
Hello everybody, my name is Emily and I'm a registered veterinary nurse. I'm also the founder and creator of Sherlock the Vet Nurse, which is a blog and social media presence that is focused on mental health awareness within the veterinary industry.
Question 2. What do you feel like you're good at when it comes to managing your time, including making time to look after yourself?
The biggest thing that really helps me to manage my time is calendar blocking. It allows me to map out my day and gives me structure, so I don't just look at a huge to-do list and feel overwhelmed. I start my morning routine, which includes me walking the dog, eating breakfast and having a shower, and finally I will then practice gratitude. I've only recently added this into my daily routine, but it's helped me to open my mind to things around me, and it helps me start my day on a more positive note. I'll then go up to my office and I'll create a list of things that I need to get done within a week. I tend to find that I'm slower in the mornings and more creative in the evenings, and so I try and play to my strengths, allowing myself to do tasks that do not take a lot of brain power in the mornings and then really get into the juicy stuff in the afternoons. I always remember a saying that my dad used to say to me when I was a kid, that Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's true. I think one of the biggest things I've learned is just because I tell myself I have X amount of things I want to do in a day, doesn't mean that I need to beat myself up if I don't manage to get them done. At the end of the day, I am only human, and there is nothing wrong with having to move something to the next day, or even putting them back onto the list of things for me to come back to in the future. Once I've blocked out my time for me to get things done in the day, I'll then start to look at my evening routine, which usually includes me or my other half cooking a healthy and delicious meal, followed by walking the dog and having a nightly catch-up with my best friend. After I've walked the dog, this is then my time to do whatever I want. Typically, I would read a book or even just chill on the sofa cuddling both Seb and Jerry. When it comes to making time for myself, I've definitely become better at this in the last few months. As a graduate of Jordan's Balanced Babe one-on-one programme, I've been able to work through a lot of my walls that I've built up around self-care, and it has allowed me freedom and really given me the opportunity to look inwards and rediscover what I need to do in order to maintain balance, both mentally and physically.
Question 3. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to balance?
One of the biggest challenges that I find at the moment, especially in the times that we're in, is my ability to resist procrastination. Being an outdoorsy and active person, I find it really hard to sit still and just relax. So I could say that I'm having a chill day, where I'm not going to look at any tasks that I've got written down. I'm not going to work on any of my Sherlock stuff. And then before I know it, I'm knee deep in content ideas and designing graphics or planning out my future content calendar. Or I could be the complete polar opposite, have a task list as long as my arm, sit down, have the mentality that I'm going to boss it out and that I'm going to get it done, and instead end up in a scroll hole of socials and end up taking the dog on a massive walk. And before I know it, my partner's asking me what's for tea and I'm just sat on the sofa wondering where the day's gone. I often find that weekends sometimes are a bit of a struggle, because you try and cram so much in at once into those 2 days that you just ultimately end up exhausted by the end of it. And when you go back to work, you're almost glad because at least you know you're getting back to your normal routine. Another challenge that I usually find when it comes to balance is allowing myself time to switch off and wind down from a day. In the job that I do, I spend a good chunk of my life there, whether it's from commuting there or actually being there in itself. So often I come home feeling exhausted and frazzled. It's something that I've become more mindful of, and allowing myself time in the evenings to help wind down and switch off. Whether, like I say, in my evening routine earlier, whether it's that I talk to my best friend or read a book, or just do something that allows me to focus in the present moment, but also give my mind time to digest everything that's going on without having to focus on it and turning it into a negative.
Question 4. What do you do to help you juggle everything that you need to juggle?
I think a lot of the time it's knowing how I'm feeling in that moment. So do I feel like I've got the energy to be able to combat some of the tasks that I may have on my list? Is it that I just need to have a more relaxed weekend where I walk the dog, catch up with family, or it's just a case-by-case basis really? But most of the time it's just being mindful of the fact of, am I feeling exhausted? Do I feel frustrated? Do I need to take time out from everything and just be present in what I'm doing, just in the moment, and just being able to prepare myself for the week ahead? So knowing that I've got meals that I need to plan, making sure that the dog goes on a nice long walk, because not only is it good for him, but it's good for both me and my partner as well, because it gives us time to be together with no distractions like social media or anything like that. And it just allows us to be in the fresh air and just have a catch up and see how our weeks have been, because it might be that week we've not actually seen each other that much. So it gives us the opportunity to be able to catch up on things and even just enjoy being together, because sometimes in the week it can be that we don't see each other from one day to the next depending on what shift I'm on. So it's a good opportunity for us to be able to spend some quality time together.
Question 5. What's your go-to for when you feel overwhelmed?
So in the past, when I used to feel overwhelmed, my biggest downfall would be that I would tend to bottle up how I would feel, to the point where it would just keep bottling up. I'd just keep bottling it up and keep going until one day the top would just be knocked off ever so slightly and everything that I'd kept in would just explode. So when I feel overwhelmed now, the best thing that I find is to get all of my thoughts out of my head and into the open, whether that's me writing it all down on a piece of paper or reaching out to my partner or my best friend and just really letting everything out, nothing held back. And they're quite good at being able to pick up on that and being able to let me express myself, to get everything off of my chest and to be able to help me through those thoughts or feelings or help me rationalise them in some way. Another thing that I try and do, like I said earlier, where possible, is I like to practice gratitude. I remember at the beginning of the year I was talking to Jordan and I was talking to another friend of mine as well, and we were just on about the practice of gratitude and how even just practicing it a couple 2-3 times a week can actually have a massive impact on someone's mental health. So if I'm honest, I was quite sceptical, but I decided to give it a go, and it's the best thing that I could have done. It gives me time, whether it's in a morning, I'd try and do it in the mornings, but sometimes I find it more positive if I do it in an evening, because it gives me just 5 minutes out of my day to be able to express gratitude for things that might have happened and pick out all the positives in my day. So instead of focusing on the negative things, it gives me chance to be able to allow myself to think of all the positives, because often in times it's quite easy for me to jump to the negative, and so being able to shine a light on the things in my day that I might have otherwise overlooked is really powerful for me. So yeah, that's one of the other big things that I do when I feel overwhelmed.
Question 6. What's one habit you do to look after yourself every day that's non-negotiable?
The one thing that I love to do that is a non-negotiable for me, regardless of what's going on that day, what's happened that week, whatever the weather's like, is walking my dog Seb. There can be times where, depending on my shifts, I am not able to spend as much quality time with him as I would like to. And he's such a happy-go-lucky little chap. He runs around like an absolute goofball, always does things to make me laugh, and just gives me joy, if I'm honest. It allows me to get my body moving and give my mind respite from all the things that have been swirling around in my head, and gives me that one-on-one quality time that I can have with him, which for me is really special, because even working in the veterinary industry where we work with animals day in, day out, you have those ones that are really special to you, those ones that no matter what they've got going on, you walk round the corner to the kennel and they're always wagging their tail. But there's nothing like going home and just having that little tail wag that greets you at the door. I don't know any other feeling that feels like that. It's just so amazing.
Question 7. What does creating a balanced life mean to you?
Creating a balanced life for me means that everything that makes my life what it is works together, but also works in harmony. I want to be able to show up as my best self for all different aspects. So I want to be the best nurse that I can be for my clients and for my patients. I want to be the best person I can be for Sherlock, so I can help as many people as possible. I want to be the best girlfriend. I want to be the best dog and cat mum. I want to I want to be able to live my life wholly, knowing that looking back at it, I did a hell of a good job. And all these practices that I have in place, all these people that I've met throughout my journey so far in life have led me up to this point of showing me what path I need to go down. But in order for me to work it out, it is going to take some trials, it is going to take some things working and some things not working. But the one thing that I know that I have is determination, and I know that I have hope that one day I will be able to look back at life and say I did it. And that to me is what creating a balanced life is all about.
I really want to say a big thank you to Emily for sharing her experiences with balance so openly and honestly. I know that joining us on the podcast was something that pushed Emily a little bit outside of her comfort zone. So I just want to say how proud I am of her for doing the scary thing. During her interview, Emily mentioned that procrastination is one of her biggest challenges when it comes to creating balance. Be it procrastinating on doing work on her side hustle or procrastinating on taking time to slow down, relax, and look after herself. And I'm sure procrastination is something that we all can relate to struggling with from time to time. I know that I definitely do it, although admittedly, I have done quite a bit of work to help me move past procrastination over the years, but it does still rear its ugly little head from time to time. So I thought that we'd use today's balanced discussion to dive deeper into the obstacle that is procrastination. So first up, what actually is procrastination? Procrastination is the action of postponing or delaying something, be it a singular task like washing the dishes or a set of tasks lumped together. So, for example, maybe working on a new business idea. Procrastination isn't a modern phenomenon. Procrastination has been around for millennia. So long, in fact, that Greek philosophers debated procrastination and developed their own word to describe it: akrasia. Now, I think you pronounce it akrasia. It could be akrasia, but I'm going to go with akrasia because that's what sounds and feels right for me. And they describe this as acting against better judgment when you know what you should do. And it was argued that this could be due to some sort of moral defect, weakness of will, or a mistaken opinion of what somebody should be doing. Now, although akrasia is slightly different from what we would consider today to be procrastination, I think it's really valuable to reflect on this because ultimately, procrastination and akrasia both act as barriers to doing what's important to us and ultimately creating and living our most balanced lives. Procrastination comes about when we've decided to do a task or activity that could be productive or it could be a self-caring act, but you put it off and you put it off and you put it off without consciously actually deciding to do it. So I'll do it later doesn't progress any further than a thought because for whatever reason, we've not consciously committed ourselves to doing the thing. Now, I just want to put it out there right now that procrastination isn't good or bad, and it's certainly not laziness because laziness is a judgment anyway, and really I believe that it's a reflection of expectation rather than fact. And honestly, I believe that there's so much more to the root cause of procrastination than just not wanting to do something. So why do we even procrastinate? I think this is a really important question, and there's not just one reason why we might procrastinate. You know, I talk a lot about creating mindful awareness of ourselves and our experiences in any given moment. And so if we can start to understand why in that moment we're avoiding doing something, we can start to see that as a problem to be solved and begin creating actionable solutions to help us move through and move past procrastination rather than letting it stop us in our tracks. Procrastination can sometimes be linked to our brain's desire for short-term instant gratification over longer-term reward, which means we trade off our long-term goals in order for a short-term hit in this moment. This bias towards the present is built into our hardwiring because from an evolutionary perspective, we need to focus on being okay and surviving in this moment, not future moments that don't exist yet. When we think about it like this, it can really start to help us make sense of why procrastination comes about. So this means that we then don't spend time maybe working on moving that business idea forward because the results of that are delayed, they don't happen right now. Or we don't take the time to exercise because we don't necessarily see the health benefits of that straight away. And I think just understanding and acknowledging this fact can be really, really powerful in helping us to stop procrastinating. Procrastination can also be linked to avoiding powerful emotions, and often they're the ones that we consider to be more painful, maybe emotions such as anxiety or frustration or sadness, or even sometimes emotions that are just more mildly unpleasant, such as boredom. If we anticipate that a particular activity, action, or task might induce these emotions, then it makes absolute sense that we might then want to avoid these emotions because they can feel uncomfortable, ranging from mildly uncomfortable to hella uncomfortable. But uncomfortable is uncomfortable, and so it's understandable we would want to avoid that. Again, this links in with solving short-term discomfort over the longer-term gain. And whilst it makes sense that we want to avoid the discomfort that comes with these emotions, the avoidance ultimately reinforces them and means that the next time we try to sit down to do the thing, we then experience these emotions with a greater degree of intensity than we did the first, second, third, or even more times that we've avoided it. This compounds further feelings, maybe of blame or frustration with ourselves for not just doing it, and creates a really vicious cycle. Another cause of procrastination can be rooted in our sense of self-worth. Self-doubt, low self-esteem, or lack of belief in yourself or your abilities can understandably lead you to avoidance and procrastination. If I hold the belief that I'm not capable or I'm not good enough, then it makes sense that doing something that maybe challenges me or pushes me outside of this comfort zone will cause those beliefs to pop up and get us to just stay where we are. It also makes sense that the more I procrastinate, the more it might chip away at my sense of self-worth and self-belief. This can then cause us to maybe lose respect for ourselves for not following through with our intentions, and it again can become a really vicious cycle of emotion, blame, and avoidance that can feel so hard to get out of. And I think honestly, and this is speaking from my own experiences, alongside my experiences of coaching women through limiting beliefs about themselves and their sense of worth, this is where procrastination around taking time for ourselves often comes into it. We procrastinate around taking time to look after ourselves because, quote unquote, we don't have time, or because other things are more important. And for me, this is a challenge of self-belief and self-worth. We believe that everything else is more important than meeting our own needs, and so we don't take action on looking after ourselves. So how do we stop procrastinating? Again, another $1 million question. I want to put it out there right now that I don't think procrastination is something we just decide not to do and then we never do it again. Because as we've already discussed, the reason why we procrastinate isn't clear-cut and can be quite deep-rooted in our brain's wiring, our beliefs, and our experiences. But I do believe that there are steps that we can take to reduce procrastination and allow ourselves the chance to do the things that we find a challenge and that we are more likely to put off or avoid. So here's 5 top tips to help you stop procrastination and move forward. Number 1, practice forgiveness. Forgive yourself for past procrastination, let go of blame or resentment towards yourself or your past actions, which ultimately you can't go back and change. You only have the power to change how you show up in this moment. So forgiving yourself allows you to change the narrative rather than continuing to perpetuate it. Yes, forgiving yourself can be really difficult, but it's a really, really powerful act in helping you move through procrastination. Number 2, start small. Rather than procrastinating on a whole list of to-dos, maybe just focus on one small task that only takes a few minutes to do. The chances are, once you get going, you'll realize that it isn't actually as bad as you thought it would be, because isn't it always the way that the thought is worse than actually doing it? And also, action breeds motivation. So the chances are you'll feel a bit more motivated to do the next small task and the next one, and that will help you keep moving forward. Number 3, give yourself an immediate reward. Reward is far more effective than punishment in terms of reinforcing actions and behaviors. This has been researched and evidenced to be true. Think about how you can dangle yourself a little carrot for doing the thing. Rewards are about giving to yourself rather than taking away. And sometimes it might be a case of a simple reframe. So if I do this thing, then I'm going to gift myself a lovely bubble bath. Over, if I don't do this thing, then I'm not allowed to have a lovely bubble bath. Can you see the difference between how the first one is a reward and the second one is a punishment? Tip number 4 is to practice self-compassion. Being human is hard, and in any given moment, you're doing the best that you can. Think about how you might support a friend who is struggling with procrastination, and then think about how you might apply that kindness to yourself. Acting compassionately towards yourself is far more effective in helping you feel more motivated and having more belief in yourself than being critical of yourself is. Tip number 5 is to remove or limit distractions. When you're procrastinating and avoiding something, it's so easy to fall down a rabbit hole of distraction, whether that's falling into a social media vortex or deciding that now is absolutely the time that you need to organise your sock drawer. The aim here is to put a hurdle in front of whatever your distraction tool of choice is, so that it makes it more difficult to go there and get that immediate reinforcement of your avoidance. Try to think creatively about how you might do this. So maybe you can delete your social media apps, or maybe you can set them to automatically log out and have a complicated password that's a real effort to type in. Maybe you can have your partner hide the cleaning supplies that you'd need to do procrastination cleaning, or maybe you can have them change the Netflix password to something that you're not aware of. Think about ways that you might put blocks in place to make the distractions more of a difficult path to walk down, which is ultimately going to serve you in pushing you a little bit closer towards the thing that you want or need to do. So as a recap, number 1, practice forgiveness. Number 2, start small. Number 3, give yourself a reward. Number 4, practice self-compassion. And number 5, remove or limit distractions. Like I said, stopping procrastination isn't always straightforward, and you might need to apply more than one of these tips to help you get closer to letting it go. But I just want you to know that I believe in you and your ability to do this. If you have any particular questions or queries, then let's continue the conversation over on Instagram. You can find me at _elevate wellness. A big thank you again goes to Emily for joining us for How Does She Do It and providing the inspiration behind today's discussion. I'll share the links to where you can find Emily online in the show notes, which will be linked below, or you can head to elevatewellness.co.uk/podcast. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us for this episode of Live Your Balance. I really look forward to seeing you with us next time. If you've enjoyed this episode of Live Your Balance, then please consider leaving a rating or review in whichever app you use to listen to your podcast. It's greatly appreciated and helps more people find the podcast so that more people can join us in living their balance too. That's all for today. So until next time, don't forget to keep living your balance.